there's a given play that filmmakers should consider when making short films, which is the shorter the better. I had a programmer at Sundance once tell me that if you have a 30-minute movie and you're going to take up a 30-minute time slot, it needs to be so perfect because you're taking away 3 10-minute time slots, for example, of 3 other groups of filmmakers that could be brought in to help bring revenue to the festival, that can help bring, whatever, right?
So this is from like a business logistics standpoint.
Yeah, this is like why from a programmer's perspective that like the longer the short film is, the more perfect it has to be. The shorter it is, the more they can forgive because it's the 3-minute time slot, right? Where if this is a 45-minute time slot for a short film, this better be banging.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you want to do the intro this time, Trey?
Sure. Welcome to episode 21 of the Dropcast. We have Peter Herold with us today. Here to just chop it up. It's been a little bit since we've seen you. Last time we saw you, we were stuck with you for a couple weeks.
Yes, you were.
More than a couple weeks.
Yeah, no, it was a great time.
A month almost.
Yeah, it was. That was a marathon, but that was an awesome marathon. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
It was, and
great,
I'm very
great
happy to be here. I'm a big fan of the show and both of you guys. So
appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for coming. So Peter is a longtime film guy and a director. And what other roles do you fill in?
I write, I direct mainly. Grew up in the theater.
Yep.
So acting was the first thing that I started to do.
And you actually grew up in Ann Arbor, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Another Ann Arbor local here.
Ann Arborite, born and raised.
There we go.
But I've done everything. I mean, I started in film getting coffee.
Did you go to WCC too?
No.
Okay.
No, I actually
Did you
didn't
work
go to
there for a minute, right?
I did. I was there, ran their video department for internal coverage of stuff that they did for a long time.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I actually went to a business school. I didn't go to film school or theater school.
Well, business school helps with the film school, as I've learned.
Yeah, it does. It does in some ways.
Yeah. So Peter, you live out in Detroit now.
Wait, real quick. What brought you to film then? If you're not in films or didn't go to film school, you're a business major or whatever, how'd you land here?
It's a long story. Okay, so to summarize it, grew up in the theater. Got the acting bug when I was little, and it was probably the only discipline in school that I felt connected to.
Yeah.
Like that I was able to, I was always the kid in class that my teachers would always say, oh, you could go so far if you only applied yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And acting and theater was the first thing that felt really natural to just dive right into.
And was that through like third party, like Rec and Ed style stuff, or was that through
that was through
Ann Arbor Public Schools?
So the first class that I took was Ann Arbor. So I did, I was the tree and Wizard of Oz and shit like that, as a kid. But
nice.
The first acting I did was it was just a theater class at Pioneer, which is where I went to high school in Ann Arbor.
Oh, yeah.
And he had us do monologues, and I did a monologue of Biff Loman, which is a character in the play Death of a Salesman.
Okay, I was thinking Back to the Future.
Yeah.
You're a little more heady than that.
Yeah. And it was a monologue, and I did it, and I remember the teacher's name. I'm going to drop his name. His name is Phil Walker, and I don't think he liked me very much because I was always coming to class high and shit. But we had this like grade of all these different things for the monologue that you could be graded on in terms of projection and timing and emotionality and all those different things. And I think it was rated out of 100, and he just scratched it out and just wrote 100. And he said it was the best he had ever seen that monologue performed. And I don't say that to be boastful, but it was one of the first times that I felt like truly applied, I guess. Like I really
and affirmed.
Yeah, like affirmed, like, oh, this is something that I like not only like to do, but that maybe I'm good at it, right?
Yeah.
And I think whenever a person can find that in their life, it's a special thing, right? I think many people don't have the opportunities in their lives to be able to do that. So anyway, I caught the bug. I liked this girl, and she did Shakespeare at this company called the Young Actors Guild, YAG. And she said, you should go try out for it. And I was like, well, I want to hang out with you, so sure, I will.
That's how it always happens, though, right?
And and then I just got the bug, and I was a principal performer with the Young Actors Guild for many years, and I was going to go to LA after high school to become an actor.
Pursue that.
No college, nothing like that. Me and my buddy Nelson were going to move out there, and my dad was just like, you need to go apply at a college. And I was like, no. He's like, do it. So he literally dragged me by my ear to an on-site admission at Western Michigan University, and they were like, all right, you can come in. And I and when I got in, when I went there, I debated, do I get a theater degree? Right? At this point, I hadn't fallen in love with writing and working behind the camera, right? So I wanted a theater degree, or I didn't know if I should get a theater degree. I guess you could say scared, right? You know, you're 19 years old. You decided that.
I mean, with that degree too, it's like you make it to Broadway or you don't.
Yeah, exactly,
kind of thing.
exactly, right. Especially because I'm a terrible singer. I'll sing all the time, but I'm a terrible singer, and so a lot of the theater programs, especially Western's theater program, was very musical theater based, right? So I was like, all right, just go get a business degree. I went and got a business degree. I was selling logistics. I was working for a logistics company in Chicago for 2.5 years after college ended.
So you lived out in Chicago for 2.5 years?
I actually lived in there for almost a decade.
Really?
Yeah, I was going back and forth for after college, and I during that time, right after college had transitioned, and when I was living in Chicago, I had an intense experience happen to me where I was stabbed in my face and my neck, and
I heard about this.
Yeah, and it's
that's where you got that gnarly badass scar.
Yeah, that's where this one's from. And if I don't have a goatee, you can see that one too. And it's a longer story. Walked outside of a party, saw my buddy getting jumped by a bunch of kids. I ran to break it up. In the melee, he ended up getting stabbed from his hand down here. I got stabbed in my chin and my neck.
Was this with a knife?
It was with a bottle, actually. I think he got stabbed with a knife. I got stabbed with a bottle.
Holy shit!
Just from like trying to break stuff up and like
and like we got jumped. I mean, it was crazy. I didn't know that I was like dying until like I carried his big ass up the stairs.
Yeah.
And when we walked in the door to my buddy's apartment, there was a bathroom right on the right.
You saw it in the mirror.
And I saw like my chin hanging off my chin, and I saw literally every time my heart was beating, like kind of classic style.
Holy shit.
So I realized I was dying. I tried to calm my heart rate down because as soon as I saw it, it went from that to that, right? Yeah. Wrapped around all my buddies who are like, these tough guys, right? They're crying, and I get taken to the hospital. I wake up the next morning, and these two old head surgeons woke me up, and they basically said, you are the luckiest person that we've ever operated on. We don't know really why you're alive, but for whatever reason, you should like
did it like dang
count your lucky stars,
jugular or
think
something?
about that.
Yeah, so what ended up happening was they had to do a 6.5 hour reconstructive surgery to put my neck back together, and going up and down you have this little like pocket of vessels, which is a vein, a nerve, and an artery. If the artery had been severed, it's the carotid artery. It's kind of your classic movie, you're dead within a minute, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Jeez.
If the nerve had been severed, I could have had like problems walking, I think of what they said. My vein was completely severed, and that's all within like a 35th of an inch of each other.
Oh my gosh.
I got very, very lucky. But what transpired because of that is that I woke up the next day, and I ended up I didn't have fear in the way that I used to about expectations or about
just like making those
living
leaps.
a life without fulfilled dreams, right? I kind of was just like, fuck it. So I quit my job, and then I went to start making movies, and I've been doing it ever since.
Holy
Power
shit.
to you, man.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That is insane.
Sometimes it takes those like crazy, almost like life-changing moments to really like.
I think that
turn
was a
that light
life-changing
on.
moment, not an almost
Yeah.
life-changing
Well, no,
moment.
I mean, for other people too, I'm sure like it's happened before in similar, not exactly like yours, but just a drastic life event that like happens and you're like, the light bulb kind of goes off. So
it's weird to say the worst thing that's ever happened to me is like the best thing that's ever happened to me. Right?
Yeah, totally.
It's such a contradictory theology about life, right? This aspect of duality. I think of like, do you know the poet Khalil Gibran?
Mm-mm.
He's an incredible poet. You should fucking know him. You should read it up. Pick him up. Pick up The Prophet. You'll love the book. But he does these little poems, right? And he has one poem on appreciation, and he like harkens life to like a gourd, right? And what he says is the more pain and hardship you experience in your life, the deeper that gourd is carved. But what that leaves is a larger vacuum for love and appreciation.
Yeah.
And I often find that with like my artists friends, right? And other people too, of course. But many of my artist friends that are sort of driven to living a life that isn't easy, living a life about telling stories, about finding truth, about being broke. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like you connect with those people in that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful thing.
That's a beautiful analogy too. I like that a lot. It's really
When
cool.
when you woke up the next day and, you know, finally got your wits about you and came back to reality, was this like a subtle change, or was this something that like as soon as you got home and you were discharged and sitting on the couch, you were like, okay, this is something that I'm going to go for?
I think so when it was happening and all my friends were around me bawling, right? I was in a mindset where I it was so far away from me what was actually happening that I kept just saying not, like I remember in my head laughing and thinking like, why are these little why are they crying? Like, this is not, I'm not going out like this. Like this. So I just kept saying in my head, not today, not today, not today, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And waking up that next day and having the doctors say, we don't really know why. I correlated it partly to that mind over matter thing, right? I think often when you're in your early 20s, that's when you're studying metaphysics and mind over matter and new age philosophies about how to alter reality around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I had experienced, you know, I read The Secret when I was a kid and 3 Magic Words and shit like that, right? But I think that was one of those sort of opportunities in life to realize like, okay, well, if I can save myself, right? If they don't really know, I mean, this is like one of those things where they always say like, oh, like, thank God that like they survived. And it's like, well, aren't you thanking the damn doctors that saved you, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, so of course, like I'm very thankful to the doctors, but if they don't really know how and why, right? And I can save my life in that way. Well, maybe I can write my own life going forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so in terms of facing the abyss versus facing the fears of freelance work or instability or actually putting yourself out there and having the world judge whether or not you're deemed worthy, those things are not scary compared to that thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And kind of to piggyback off what you said about, you know, the doctors, you know, thank the doctors and everything, but they said they didn't understand like why that happened. I would assume during that 6-hour reconstructive surgery, they're doing their jobs, but also them completing it and being like, he's stabilized and this is working, like what's going on. I assume that was also a lot going on in your head, like outside of the realm of, you know, not today, your brain being calm and going into this like state of just understanding like you're going to be able to fight through it and make it. Like,
Yeah.
I think that would definitely, like, that's how I
It's like
hear
manifesting it in a sense, or just like telling, like, I mean, if you think thoughts and like think enough of those thoughts, you'll eventually like absorb that to some extent.
The way that I've always heard it put was that your mind is a garden, right? So like your conscious thoughts are a garden, and the universal subconscious mind. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The universal subconscious mind, or God, or creation, that's a garden. Your conscious thoughts are seeds, and whatever you plant in that garden is what will grow. So if you believe prosperity and peace and plenty, then, and you think those thoughts, then that's what will grow in your life. Right?
Yeah.
But if you're completely stressed out and only like really negative and just down on yourself, you're just going to grow those bad seeds and those bad apples.
Right. And it's got to come with a modicum of pragmatism, I guess you could say, right? It's like you can't, you're not going to think happy thoughts and think Hurricane Ian away, right? Yeah. But it's like you do have, the only thing you really can control is yourself, right?
Yeah, and I've used this analogy throughout my life to help me stay rooted and grounded, and it's like we are very similar to plants, so it's like all the soil that we're in, the plants that are around us, the habitat we put ourselves in, are we being choked out by others, are we in toxic soil? Like those are the things that we need to pay attention to, because if we don't change those things around us, it can hinder our growth as a plant. And the beauty of it is, as humans, is we do have the ability to like uproot ourselves and put ourselves in a different pot to an extent, obviously with like financial restrictions and other things like that, but just the ability
soil
to
restrictions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like just wherever the demographic you're from, and like if you can possibly get out of it or not. But I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's dope. Man, I got to read more books. Peter's laying down some big words and some heady thoughts, dude.
Listen to books. Listening to books is like really easy, and you can absorb a lot. It's the same thing as podcasts.
I admit a lot of my books are through Audible these days.
I mean, when you drive and stuff too, kick it on, you can get through a whole book in a drive out west.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever read the book, The Seven Essential? What is it? The Seven. I can't think of it. It's Stephen Covey. The Seven Laws of Leadership.
Oh, okay. I've heard of it. Haven't read it.
Well, there's an excerpt. I mean, it's written way back in the day, but there's a lot of references to this Holocaust survivor. And one of the things is like the Holocaust survivor, I don't remember his name, but it's a true story, had like befriended all the guards and everything like that. And after he survived the Holocaust, he went on and became a motivational speaker to everybody and like how to live your life in a way. And he was basically just talking about like, I was in the worst possible conditions, but it's kind of what you were talking about, where like the only thing that you can control is your mindset. Like if you can mind over matter and change like the way that you are, like he attributes it to being one of the only reasons that he survived, because not only had he befriended guards because he was an enjoyable person to be around, but like he was still there like mentally and never like gave up, because he could just continue to change the way that he thought.
Power of belief.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, you also like, it's interesting.
I was gonna say it's just a remarkable story on how you got into film. By the way, like I'm glad you shared.
Thank
you for sharing that. That's,
that's crazy.
Yeah, I haven't told a lot of people that story publicly.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people.
Well, I mean, there's like a total of like 6 people that watch this, so shouts out to you guys.
That's okay.
I've heard bits and pieces of that, but it's never really been something where I like was like, "Hey, Peter, tell me that story." Which
actually I appreciate.
Yeah,
I think like,
of course.
There's at least once when I go out to the ar, people go, "What's that hickey on your neck?"
You're just like, I slipped on my skateboard, dude. It's crazy.
I used to tell people crazy stories. Just leave me alone.
Yeah, right. So one of the things that me and Trey do is like a lot of commercial work and live events and stuff like that. But I've noticed that you tend to lean more toward the narrative work. And as a writer, I mean, you just wrote that feature film that we worked on, Don't Be a Stranger.
Written, directed it, casted in it, like you did it all.
Yeah, did the whole thing. And like even before that, I mean, I've worked on other things with you that were, specifically I remember the Ruth Alice one in Detroit. And that was also like very non-commercial and more narrative and emotion driven. When you are like looking for freelance work, is that something that you tend to gravitate toward and like seek after, or has like previous work? Oh, and the Pepsi thing, right? That you did too. That was also much more like authentic emotion, narrative driven piece, even though it was an advertisement. How do you, like, what is your thought process and workflow when you're like writing these scripts or like these storylines?
For commercial work or narrative?
Well, I'd say just all over, because I feel like I know a lot of people that, even in Hollywood, that try to do narrative stuff and it doesn't really work out that well, but somehow still gets made. So
yeah. Well, I think I've always had a difficult relationship between commercial versus narrative, because I got into this life to make movies,
Yeah.
right? And I think that a lot of freelance filmmakers find themselves in this place, right? Of that it's a middle ground between that they're doing well and that they're making strides where they want to go in their creative career. But they also have to pay the bills, right? And so I guess I would say that I generally gravitate towards commercial work that has more of a narrative feel, but or an emotionality to it. But to be honest, I like find as many excuses that I can find on a daily basis as to why I can't do commercial work and need to stick to the narrative. And so maybe it's just that like those producers or those companies are calling me because they know that that's kind of
something that you can do.
It's something that I might be interested in, or something that I'm, that I can do.
Well, to get those,
I've done a lot of car stuff too. I just don't. I have a bunch of buddies that direct out in Detroit that are really good at that shit. You know, like that's like they think that's how they think, right? They think about stories in like these. Okay, it's 30 seconds long, and it's a car. He flies around the track, and then it whips up, and then we punch in, and we see the wheel spinning and shit like that. And it's like, I think it's really cool. It's just not how I think about work a lot of the time. And yeah, it's hard to, that type of work in the directing world, for example, if you're writing for a Ford piece or a Cadillac piece, you'll often put in 3 to 5 days worth of work as a director on a deck that might not be accepted, right? It's sort of a strange process, but Ford will come out to a production company and they'll say, okay, we want this to advertise this, and we have this idea for the creative. And then the production company will reach out to 5 different directors and they'll say, hey, can you give me, some words on this, a deck on this, right? And then they'll turn on those 5 decks, right? And it's weird because it's like all 5 of those decks are just like sort of their own iteration of like what they've asked you to do. So in many ways, you're not really ever bringing any unique ideas to the table, right? Which is something that I pride myself in being able to do, is to bring a unique idea to the table. Yeah. But so you're often not doing that. You're often just saying like, okay, like you're basically rewriting their words to hopefully that they're going to like it. And then you don't get it. And so it's it can be trying. And I think a lot of the people that do push past that are that they're really interested in commercial work, right? And I think naturally, as we all find ourselves in this world, in this this like workforce, you're gonna end up finding what you actually want to do. And it might not be a conscious choice. It might be something that you have to look back and go, well, you know what? I really didn't spend that much time doing commercial work the last couple of years. Maybe I'd really just want to do film, right? And you'll sort of see. When it comes to movies, it's like, I don't know. I think when it comes to ideas or writing, I sort of view like creativity as like a big ass river, and you're just like standing in it catching fish. Like I don't ever think that it's like when I'm thinking of writing ideas, it always comes from somewhere else. You may have heard that before. Like people say that, where like it feels like it comes from somewhere else, and it sort of creates a mystical slant to it, or a cosmic slant, or a spiritual or godly slant to it. I don't know if it's that. I think we all, it's just all like this, the hive mind of consciousness and subconsciousness, and sometimes things just come to you.
And experiences and things you see in everyday life will add to that. But
catch a fish, it might not be the one you want. Put it back
in the creative river. I just wanted to say
another one will come, right?
I just wanted to say too, like what you're talking about with like commercial work and stuff, how you can, at least what I've noticed in like the productions that we've done, and like it's been quite some time since I would say even since like college, or I mean shortly after that was like our last narrative actual piece that we did that was like short film kind of based. And I feel like I've definitely lost touch with that in a sense, almost not to the point where I couldn't like sit down and apply myself to do it, but so much commercial work, so much just advertising and that whole world, music videos, live event stuff, like that. I applaud you and admire you that you have like such that sharp craft in the narrative aspect of creative, because it's like so many people are too, just like running that commercial game and running that freelance, because that's where a lot of the money is. But
Yep. And I applaud you guys on that too, vice versa. I mean, if I'm being honest with myself, it's something I used to look down on, right? Of like, commercial guys are hacks. You know what I mean? Like, just go fucking shoot a car. It's easy, you know? But really, in terms of having to apply myself for it over the last couple of years and doing larger directing jobs like for Pepsi and, you know, bigger companies, people who do that stuff, just what they do, they're really good at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, they really don't think in larger, you know, like it's hard for me to tell a 30-second story, you know?
Well, too,
It's
and
hard
they're
for me
that
to
good at
bridge.
it because they're like, they got the blinders on and all they're seeing is like Ford trucks. And it's like, okay, cool. I know this. And it's like, you can't step outside of that box and have 10 other boxes and be just as good
Right.
in those boxes if you're not. Like, it's the bucket half full kind of analogy.
Yep. And a lot of actually, never mind on that. Continue.
When you're doing these narrative pieces, I'd assume that you have like a lot of different scripts that are just sitting on your computer and different pitch decks that you're just waiting to recycle.
I
if that makes
remember
sense.
reading a very, very early version of DBAS. How many versions of that script were there?
Okay, so
Well, I was printing sides and I was having trouble with that from time to time. So
Okay, yeah, on
Hell
set
yeah.
there was a little bit of script changing too. Before production started.
I sent you guys new pages every morning
Oh yeah.
after you had already printed
They
them all.
started asking me. They're like, "Hey, can we print the scripts and the sides for tomorrow?" And I was like,
No.
Like, we'll just do it in the morning. I'll do it first thing in the morning because I know they're going to change, and that's a good thing.
No,
We
it
would
is
get
a
off
good
set at midnight, and then Peter would go home, change write the pages
Yeah.
that we were gonna go shoot.
How was
So I actually kind of like learned that mania from.
you call it mania?
I said that, but yeah, it's a bit of a mania. Sometimes when you're coming home and it's 3 a.m. and you spend 2 hours writing.
Well, those
pages, so-
drives too, you kind of have a lot of time with your head, to where I'm sure for your sake you can be like, oh well, we can do this, and then like once you get home, it's just pen and paper.
Yep. I learned this from the first big movie I got to do was No Sudden Move, which is Steven Soderbergh's film.
Yep.
Where he would- I know the
And
story you're
I
gonna
was
tell.
I was the assistant to Casey Silver, who is the old CEO of Universal Pictures, and he was the producer of this film. Coolest fucking dude ever.
Oh, I
Like
bet.
seriously, wonderful man. But him and Ed are good buddies. Ed was the writer. He was the writer of Men in Black and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and stuff like that. Also a wonderful human. And I was driving them around, right? I was their gopher. So they would get into the car and then they would just start talking about the scripts, right?
And your ears are just
And I realized, okay, they're really adjusting the script every single day, right? They're going into scenes going, wait, this doesn't work. We got to switch this up. This can be better, right? And it's like,
That's
it was that
fascinating.
constant fight to like, we know it can be better, you know, even though you finish a script and you go, dude, I'm fucking done. I wrote this thing, right? And then 2 weeks later you go, well,
yeah.
I mean, that's
you know?
with creative, it's like the 1% rule. If you can do something to make your piece or anything that you do 1% better, then do it. You
Yep.
know?
And so to answer your original question, the script started off as a 15-page or a 30-page short story that was very different than the movie we made. It went through many iterations into it eventually being the feature that it was. I want to say probably 35 to 40 different scripts. Some iterations wildly different, some just sort of,
Yeah.
Back to No
Broad
Sudden
tweaks.
Move real quick. I just want to point out how fascinating Soderbergh cranking out the dailies after each shoot is, like sitting in the bar. I think
Yeah.
Jack or someone told me that like he would every single day go through all the footage and have like a rough of the day.
Yeah,
done.
I don't know
Like,
how much I should say about this, but he's like, it was an incredible thing to watch Soderbergh do. I think he would come on a set each day. And granted, I don't know if this is how he shoots all his movies or this is just how he shot this movie. If you know his career, he does a lot of different experimental sort of things, like shooting a movie on an iPhone.
Yeah.
But he would walk onto set each day, and it appeared that he didn't have coverage in his mind. What he would do is he would have the actors just do it. He'd say, just walk around, just kind of do it. And he would get a feel for it. He'd make adjustments. and then he would shoot chronologically, but he would through the scene, but he would literally only get the coverage that he wanted. So after he would see people do their thing, he would like walk outside for like 10 minutes and just sort of pace around, right? And then he would come back in and he'd be like, okay, start on a close-up of Benicio, and it's like just this line. And then it would be like, okay, and now David Harbour, he has this line, we're doing it in a medium. And he would do it like that, and like,
that's why
I don't know if I would recommend us doing this, because in some ways I think not having a shot sheet is going to lead to logistical problems for productions that don't have a lot of toys and a lot of personnel. But the way he did it is, dude, we were shooting like 9-hour days. Like, he was so efficient.
In and
it was
out.
incredible. And then he would come home every night, and he would go up to this was during COVID, so we had a hotel, a wonderful hotel in Detroit, fully rented out for our crew. And he would go upstairs to the rooftop bar, and he would get the dailies, and he would edit scenes. And then,
well, if you're doing it line by line, all sporadic like that, I feel like you have to cut dailies at that point. So you're like, no.
Well, it sounds
but
like
what's weird is that he just had it though. Like, it wasn't so much like, it feels like it was confusing, but it ended up shortening it, because it wasn't like, all right, let's do the whole scene in the wide just to get it, because we might cut to it. He'd be like, no, only the first line is the wide.
He knows.
So
what
that's
he wants.
literally all we need to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's
efficient.
I don't think any aspiring filmmakers are going to get that type of leash with financiers, but Soderbergh can.
Well, it seems like there's a method behind the madness. I mean, obviously, you said he might not shoot all of his other films like that, but I would have to be forced to assume that maybe he has some sort of experience of doing that, or at least knows that the actors that he's working with can deliver what he needs to. And I mean, that had such a banging cast. Like, I feel like, that it doesn't seem like it happened on accident.
No, it does. It didn't. And he's been editing and shooting his last, I don't know, 5 movies or something under a nom de plume. So he's been his, like, a fake name. So he's been his editor and his own DP for a long time. I think Mary something, that's like his editor, but that's him.
What would be
I don't know if I just gave that away.
What would be the reason for that?
Oh, humility. I mean, I don't know, but I assume he just doesn't want his editor, cinematographer, director.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
You feel shameful, like me writing and directing and acting in this movie of Don't Be a Stranger was a long time of like, okay, I finally have this opportunity. I need to show the world what I have. But like, there's a lot of, I guess you feel like, especially coming from the Midwest, when we all we're humble people, it's kind of tough to put yourself into that light and be like, okay, I'm going to do all these fucking things, You're
all of the spotlights on set kind of thing.
No.
But I mean, it's truly remarkable what you were able to pull off with that. But yeah, let's reel it back into D-Bass here. Okay. So we worked on the pitch, or like the short form of Don't Be a Stranger last summer. And then,
is that what that was too, if I'm correct? That was like a short form version of it, or was it always
for like a pitch of sorts, right?
No, it was, you could call it the first round part of production. Do you want to continue your thought, and then I'll explain kind of,
I mean, go ahead.
So it was sort of like weird how this all happened, but when I wrote one of the versions of the script that we shot last year, as we were shooting it, I realized that this could be more. But there's and it could be a feature, but there's a given play that filmmakers should consider when making short films, which is the shorter the better. I had a programmer at Sundance once tell me that if you have a 30-minute movie and you're going to take up a 30-minute time slot, it needs to be so perfect, because you're taking away 3 10-minute time slots, for example, of 3 other groups of filmmakers that could be brought in to help bring revenue to the festival, that can help bring, whatever.
So this is from like a business logistics standpoint.
Yeah, this is like why, from a programmer's perspective, that like the longer the short film is, the more perfect it has to be. The shorter it is, the more they can forgive, because it's the 3-minute time slot, right? Where if this is a 45-minute time slot for a short film, this better be banging, right? And so when filmmakers, when you're making your first short film or your first couple of short films, you really want to consider of like, I know you have these big ideas, but like, what can you do to make it short, right? Because I've had the film in question that I was talking to the programmer about was a film that I was the cinematographer on 3 years ago called Blissburger, which is a film written and directed by the very talented Adam Wright.
Oh yeah.
And the programmer basically said, like, look, we loved your movie and it actually got really far into the process, but that it was 22 minutes long. And he was like, if you had turned us in a cut that was like 15 minutes long, he was like, you would have got in. But that 22 minutes, he was like, that extra 7 minutes, he was like, it was like there were enough things that we were able to say no to, right? And when festival, especially big festival submitters, or programmers, when they get so many movies that it gets to a point where they're sort of just looking for reasons to disqualify you, right? Because there's just so many submissions. And so I've written many scripts, but I had written several short films that I thought were worth making, but they were all like 35, 45 pages, right? And it's like, it's such a weird market because it's like, the type of level of filmmaking that we make at this point is expensive enough where we're no longer satisfied with the like, hey, we made a movie, let's go make it with our little DSLR, right? It's like we're at a point in our careers where it's like we've done that. If we're going to fucking spend the time and money to make a movie, we want it to be something that like we're not like, oh, it was so good except for that audio guy who sucked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We tried to, Pete did the audio again and it was terrible, right? So it's like you got to spend enough money, but if it's a 35, 40 page script, it's hard to find, right? No one wants to spend $75,000 on a short film because short films don't have a market, right? Short films are essentially proving grounds for filmmakers. They're opportunities for us to flex our muscles, and they're for the enjoyment of our friends, family, and other filmmaking communities, right? No one watches short films besides the Oscar shorts and stuff. People sometimes watch those, right? So when we decided to make the first round of the movie last year, it was like, all right, we have these 15 pages. They're tight. They're interesting. Let's shoot it. But as we were shooting it, my sneaky dumbass self was like, look, I think we have a fucking feature here, right? So I'm giving actors sides all last production, and I'm sneaking in scenes, right? And when we finished last year's production, I said, hey guys, I know we're supposed to shoot or edit this really tight 15-minute short.
Yeah.
Let me just see. I think we got some more. Let me just see how the film feels a little bit longer. Like, let me just like edit it without this, like, let's cut it to be this certain length. And I think the cut was like 55 minutes. So we were like, let's go make a full movie. So
everybody watched it, and there was like good feedback, and through explanation and pitches, everybody was like, holy shit, Peter, you're right.
And so what we did is I'll tell everybody about the movie in a second so they can sort of see why this would work, because I don't think that this is something that's applicable to like anybody's movie to just take a short script and say, hey, it'll work as a feature. The anthological format of Don't Be a Stranger, I think, allowed for it because it's a story about many different people told in a sort of an interesting, unique way. And so I think it's okay for us to have expounded on some of the stories that we told last year, but then also create new ones. And to really marry them all together into something bigger and more truer to what us as all artists were trying to say last year, which I think is a beautiful place to get to in any artistic endeavor, right? And then I had an absolutely wonderful team of producers. My creative partner, Tanya Hawkins, she was incredibly supportive in terms of like thinking about this crazy idea and actually deciding to do it, you know? And so she said, okay, write a script. And I took last year's shoot and I like transcribed it into a new script, as well as some of like the new pages I had given them and our ad lib scenes. And then I wrote new stuff. And so I created a 90-page script out of a lot of different things. And then we shot 9 days a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tanya was definitely the fire under the production.
Tanya's a badass.
Yeah, she killed it.
Yes, and Marissa Clement.
Yep. She was just on here
Jack
last night.
Okay.
Which is last week, technically.
Yeah, technically. But yeah, you had a banging crew. I mean, Bobby,
including you two.
Oh, thank you. That was
it was all the homies. That was the dream team for sure.
There was it was a testament to how incredible everyone was last summer because we got every single person back.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it was like the whole team came back together, and then you guys were only on for one day last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I remember to Jack, I said, we need them on the whole fucking time. Because
Hell yeah.
John and Trey you guys are so intelligent, such good energy, so smart, but also you guys are fucking workhorses. Like, you guys bust your ass in ways that not a lot of people do, and it's recognized and it's obvious to people who appreciate that type of thing, and it's like I wanted you there.
We appreciate
and I'm so
that.
appreciative and
Much
thankful
love.
for you guys to
I would say not only did we want to be there, but to work for you and to help produce and just not produce, I wasn't a producer or anything, but I'm saying to help be a part of getting this thing up and running is just kind of an honor in itself, in my opinion, too. So I'd like to thank you for bringing me onto that, because that was awesome.
And
that
I
was
just completely
likewise.
believe in the story, and I think that this thing can really go places. And
Yeah.
it's really cool to be behind, for sure.
and
We're gonna see it on the big screen someday, for sure.
Yes, we will.
Oh yeah. And also just the first time, last year when we were on the first run around, set design, story, acting, everything that I saw on monitor when I would peek my head around, I was like, holy shit, dude, this thing is good. This thing is really good. And a thing about it too is that it's original, and I think that might be one of the differences between commercial and narrative that I just draw between the two. Commercial, like you said, you can have the zoom in of the car and then the wheel and this and that. If I've seen a Ford commercial in the year 2008 and I see a Chevy commercial in the year 2011, I wouldn't really be able to tell the difference.
Right.
There's a lot of cookie cutter ways about it, and it's the same thing too with Hollywood movies, but this was really, really original. And if you want to go into detail a little bit about what makes this more original than others, and I'm not saying more original, but what the attributes of this film bring.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I can make a solid argument for why my film is better than others, but I can, I can tell you about the movie.
I worded that a little wrong.
So the film is called Don't Be a Stranger. Life's primordial urge to move is explored through a wheelchair and the 7 humans that inhabit it. Mm-hmm. So the movie is about how hard it is to sit still, and the main character is a wheelchair, and we meet 7 different people throughout around a decade-long period that happened through happenstance to be in that wheelchair for a certain amount of time, and we took the whole concept sort of one step further, this whole idea of stasis and stillness and wanting to move, and we built a 9-foot camera rig that is attached to the wheelchair, and the camera is pointed at the wheelchair. So sort of think like a snorri cam in sort of a weird way, but really far back as a medium wide shot instead of an extreme close up. Mm-hmm. And the entire film is shot through that one singular vantage. So us as audience members are as stuck as the people in the chair.
Wow.
And that's a really cool metaphorical whole another layer to this piece, which I just appreciate so much. And the fact that it's one angle the entire film, and it's a new feeling each scene and each time that you guys brought together these scenes was just remarkable. It's not, I don't know. It's really well done in the sense that you're stuck in the chair and you're just seeing these little inlays of people's lives that have gone through this chair in life, you know, and it's crazy.
Yeah. What it allowed us to do is maximize production value for other things, right? Because we didn't have coverage, because it's all, you know, the wheelchair is the tripod, it's the dolly, it's everything, right? It's both the very thing that's stopping people from being free is the very thing that moves the audience in this story, right? It's the chair. And so all of its stillness, all of its movement is activated by the characters themselves. And so as we as an audience, as we as filmmakers, when we went into each scene, right, and we go, okay, this is this scene at a buffet, right? Normally you'd have to go, okay, what's our coverage here? Going back to the Soderbergh story, right? Okay, well, this line really needs to be in a close-up because it's really important, blah, blah, blah. And as an indie production, right, we shot this movie in 15 days total. You look at the way that we like to shoot and the heart and the art that we put behind everything when it comes to cinematography and the production design and the wardrobe and the talent. And you go, I can't shoot this. You're right. It's going to take me one day to shoot just this scene, let alone, right? But because the movie was just in this chair, what we were allowed to do is say, dude, let's spend 2 hours making the production design perfect.
Yeah,
let's spend 2 hours tweaking the lighting, right? And so often scenes we'd go, okay, we have this is what, you know, these are the pages that need to be covered. I'm going to go off with the actors and we're going to go rehearse. You talented people are going to, you know, you in camera, you in production, we're going to get the whole world together. We're going to go do our things for an hour or two. Or an hour. We're going to come back. We're going to meet up. We're going to marry it all together. And then we're actually going to shoot the scene in 15 to 20 minutes. Right. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I think it allowed us to do a lot of really interesting things, both experimentally in terms of exploring things that like maybe we weren't thinking of right when we were writing it or when we were producing it. Right. Which oftentimes on really constrained time schedules and logistical schedules for other types of films that have more traditional coverage, you don't have time to have spontaneity, right? You just go, dude, you got to move. You got 20 minutes to get your wide in, and you haven't started on anything else yet, right? But for this, we were able to really kind of play.
Totally. I think building the spaces and like just building these worlds, and then just kind of living in them is a really cool way of going about it in that sense too. And the fact that the camera is on that fixed whole rig the entire film, so like your framing and stuff for shots is like super unique in that sense, and you're kind of looking at the frame in a completely different way than you would with a regular lens or a regular movie, if you will. So
yeah, it's sort of fun because sometimes we really lean into the movement of it, right? We're really frenetic and there's a lot of editing and jump cuts, and it's surprising how much motion and how much movement and energy you can get from just that shot. Mm-hmm. But then oftentimes we just don't cut and we let it play out for 5 minutes of a scene, and it almost feels a little bit like a moving painting, right? Where you don't notice until 2 minutes into the shot that the ship, the cargo ship in the background has sailed halfway across the lake. But when you do notice it, it's this sort of meditative, very calming effect, right? And
it's
so
real. It's very
real,
authentic.
Yeah, and so you sort of like, it's this really sort of interesting interplay between how we as the filmmakers can make the audience anticipate the cut and want to move on, right? And sort of play with that feeling of like, oh God, just let me fucking move, right?
Yeah,
but then also, right, get out of the damn chair, right? But then also play with this opportunity to maybe talk about a little bit of the motifs of the film, about how like slowing down every once in a while and doing absolutely nothing is maybe okay, right?
Mm-hmm. I learned so much in that month, in those few weeks that we were on set. I mean, just not only shadowing and working with Jack as his assistant, and then also like being side by side with Marissa and Phelan, like at the production office, and just really narrowing in the skills that I thought I might have knew, and also listening to the art department and listening to you guys and the camera and watching the monitor and just being like, you know what, like this is kind of starting to, somebody said something that like really like I was like, wow, like that's a really interesting way to put it. They were like, you know, this scene is starting to like stink a little bit in a way that might smell like the other scene, and we don't want to like have these two scenes like even have the same scent. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, that makes so much sense though. I was like, that makes so much sense.
When visual sensory isn't enough, you have to go to the smells.
Yeah, and it's just like they see, like, you know, and then it's like, okay, well, like, what if we do this and that? And then just another thing too was like, on some of those days, I mean, we were shooting long days, and I would be like, you know, it's interesting that we're only shooting this amount of scenes, because I feel like on like major motion pictures, if they moved at this pace, how would they continue to like make them as fast as they do? And then I started to realize, I was like, oh, that's because we're not shooting like a few scenes. Like these are long blocked out shots that
one lens.
Yeah, one lens too, yeah. One view, like everything like that, to where, you know, in other movies it would be broken down into a bunch of different shots. But because these ones had such complicated blocking and movement and dialogue and acting, like the scenes are just, you know,
brings you back to your roots of plays and stuff too.
Yeah, that's actually a lot of the performers that we got for the movie. I recruited theatrical performers, not for theatrical performances, but for example, one of our leads, Mark Coulson, who's a wonderful actor. He's a principal at the Purple Rose Theater. Okay. He's currently doing Sherlock. You guys should go see it. It's wonderful. But we tried to get as many theater actors as possible, because I knew that a lot of these scenes are
the lines.
We're setting it up, and you have a lot of blocking, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of very specific blocking, because the camera, because of the rig, that's how we reveal things, right? If someone turns, now that's a reveal, right? Or that's showing their emotionality if they want to move forward. If they're scared, they're moving backwards. So there's all these very specific things, and oftentimes it's 5 minutes shot, and we don't cut, right? And so you got to have people that can live in it, right? And I think Bobby Lanin and Mark Coulson and the newcomer Zoe Spencer and so many actors did so wonderfully in this movie. Martez Moore.
Oh yeah, people were hitting their marks. I was really blown away at how people were. There was very few hiccups on like, oh, can you feed me that line one more time? Like people were on it, and it is with those longer takes. It's those play backgrounds for sure.
And I didn't have as much time as I would have liked, or do you always want more? But one of the things that I do as a director that's a little bit different than many film directors is I do pretty intensive rehearsal schedules.
Yeah, I mean, you worked with the talent through and through the whole entire piece, obviously as the director, but like as soon as they showed up, like I was shuffling them your way for rehearsals. And I think what Trey was saying is nobody missed their mark, is I specifically remember one point when you had come out and you guys had just finished a scene, and I was talking to Trey, and Trey was like, dude, you didn't see that? And I was like, no, I was over at the, PO. And he was like, dude, Peter he just rocked that. I was like, really? He was like, dude, that was highly impressive as like you as an actor. And I was like, damn, dude, I fucking I'm missing so much.
Do you remember what scene it was?
I do, yes. I'll have to tell you off the record.
And I was just like, damn, man, I'm missing everything over here. Like logistics and stuff is fun, and like that's what I'm good
Mr.
at.
Producer.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun and great. I love it, but I just can't wait to see it like on the screen. I'm gonna be like, whoa.
We were battling weather for that scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can talk about it.
We'll talk about
it was amazing through and through.
Yeah, that was an intense day. There was, it was such a wonderful month, though.
Oh yeah,
it was so intense and beautiful, and so many people coming together. Like, I mean, that's the one thing that I think I'm most proud of the entire production, is just like looking back and just seeing how many incredible artists came together and did their fucking thing for 3 weeks.
It was so
and
great.
It's like clockwork.
Yeah, like it was incredible to watch.
It was that good of a time that like I want that to be like a yearly thing, like where we all come together. And
just, we did it the year before, so come on back next summer.
Three.
Don't be a stranger.
Keep it going.
Year 3. Reshoots.
And it's great too because I mean, once you start working with everybody for that long, and you develop those relationships, and this is what I was saying in the last podcast, like you do develop that sense of family, and it feels amazing because you're like, these are the people, like, you know, you don't choose your family because you're born with them, but like you can choose your friends and the people that you surround yourself with. But like when you start working with people like that, you do become family, and it's like, you know what, I didn't choose this family either, like, but this is the family that I'm happy to be with. And there was like a couple points throughout the shoot where, you know, it's late, we might have a second lunch or something, and everything's moving around, you hustle and bustle, and you just remember like, I'm not like clocked in at work right now. Technically I am, but like I forget sometimes that we're making a movie.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It makes all the pain and hardship okay, because you know those days you get to wake up and you go, I'm where I'm supposed to be, and that's rare.
And that's where I mean I felt the most at peace like in my life in a really long time on that set. Even though, you know, we're all working and having a blast, but we're doing what we love. And there was a day, I think it was kind of getting toward like day 7 or something like that, where you had a safety meeting at the beginning, and we're just talking to everybody, and you gave like this speech, and I know Adam has it because he was filming the whole entire thing.
Was he?
Yeah, but
Okay.
he was you were just talking about like how much gratitude you had for everybody, and just like how much appreciation you had for everybody as well. And it was like, it made me tear up, and I was just sitting there and I was like, fuck yeah, dude. And you were like, yo man, just to remind it. I mean, you weren't like, yo man, you were just like, you know, just to remind everybody, like, we're making a movie, like a full length feature film, and you guys are all a part of this, and I couldn't have done it without you. And I was like, hell yeah.
It's true though. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about film, and I don't think a lot of other organizational structures get to display that so clearly, is that the film unit it's a micro, they're all bits of microcosm of one larger organism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all the way down to the dude who's getting the coffee. It's like, well, Papa doesn't have his coffee, the shoot's not going well, right? So it's like everybody is important, everybody, and not just important, critical.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And that's like,
It takes
that's
a village.
fucking cool, man. Like, that's cool that you can walk on set, you can be doing your first day on a movie set ever, and you're interested in the world, and you just said, yeah, sure, I'll do it, right? And you're getting coffees, your PA, and you might think you're the lowest rung on the totem pole, and you don't realize, or on the ladder, and you don't realize how critical you are to the success of that project.
Yeah, it's like if we don't have somebody to go get gasoline, or to go fill up these generators, or, you know, food, coffee, water, like when we run out of Gatorade and somebody, you know, gets sick because they're dehydrated, it's like, yo, you're a very important person. You know, we need you.
Yep.
How's editing coming? Are you editing it as well?
So yeah, so we have several different wonderful people connected to post, which I'll sort of leave secret for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, soon. I think early next year we'll be able to have a private showing, and then hopefully we'll be in festivals and theaters 2023.
I love it.
Fuck yeah, man.
And then we'll get to do it all over again. Different story.
Yeah.
Is this like your full-time thing that you're doing right now, or you got anything else in the works, or thinking like writing, or?
I'm going to be adapting a novel pretty soon, but I'm
Really?
going to finish the first cut of this first. Yep.
Any idea on like the direction of where that's going, or is it like?
I can't.
Give me like, is it like a biography? Is it fictional? Is it non-fictional?
It's a biography about a man who's from New York, but he has had a pretty important role in Michigan's history.
Fictional or real?
Real.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's
going to be really cool. I wish I could say more about it, but I haven't.
I get it. Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so and then just going forward, you know, I can't wait to share Don't Be a Stranger with the world, right? And I'm just so grateful to you guys, and Tanya and Jack, Jesse and Pat and Brian and Tina and Dylan and Miss Marissa and Phelan, and just so many people that came together. You know, we fucking did it. And I think this will be, I do believe, regardless of whether or not this movie's for you, that people will be able to see that some real exciting artists are living in Southeast Michigan.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
they should look out
huge
for us.
for Michigan, like in that sense, you know. I mean, there's not like creative short films, feature films, private feature films that are coming out in Michigan right now, and I feel like that you can really make a stamp with this film. So,
Yep.
do you feel this construction? It's like shaking your house right now.
Really?
Like,
Yeah,
not that-
sorry for everybody if they hear like beeps or like loud noises. My house is,
They probably just hear my heavy breathing into the mic.
How's Jesse's arm healing up? Is he
Jesse's
out of
arms,
he's good to go?
Yeah, he's getting there. He's about to be back on his bike anytime now.
oh,
Back
man. Are
whiskey
you guys gonna
throttle
go
on the
riding
bike.
hopefully before?
Yeah, I'm trying to get him back on there as soon as possible.
Yeah, Phelan's like, no.
What
Oh,
do you?
she rides too.
Oh yeah.
she's
badass.
She's a ripper. What
Yeah,
do you
she-
have again? You have dirt bikes, right?
No, I have a Harley
Okay, love.
Iron 883.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a big bike.
I'm a hog boy. Yeah.
Hog.
Big old
I'm a hog,
comfy.
man. Yeah, it's not too big. It's not. It's still a Sportster.
Yeah, but it's like nice and comfy though.
It's
right?
comfy though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I'm
looks
thinking about
nice.
getting me an old street bike. I'm growing up on the dirt, riding motocross and
There
stuff.
you go.
So
You got to.
I've always been super tempted. My dad just got this badass supermoto bike that's all like street legal, and it's
Did he?
like it's insane. I mean, it has like ABS brakes and stuff. So like I've never grown up with or been on a bike with ABS, but like
Yeah,
being
that's
able to
fancy.
stomp the back brake and it's just like brrr.
Yeah.
It doesn't even skid.
I
There's
know.
no like. It's insane, and you just shift a couple gears and you look down and you're going 90. I'm like, whoa, like I'm in a neighborhood.
See, that's one of the reasons why I don't ride motorcycles. I've ridden my friends' dirt bikes and motorcycles before, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't ever want to buy one of these because I'm probably going to die on them if I
Yeah.
do. You know,
You got to have a lot of
It's just
respect
other-
for it in
You
the
just got to
road.
keep your head on a swivel. It's other people you got to watch
Yeah.
out
that
for.
too. It's my main concern is, texting and driving. You can't drive anywhere nowadays without looking left or right and seeing somebody on their phone.
That's
Like
the
9 out
one
of
reason
10
that
times.
stopped me. I feel like of
Yeah.
getting a street bike, but I'm close. I'm on
Yeah,
one.
I would say it's just you be smart. You know what I mean? You gotta. Most accidents happen not because of the motorcyclist, but
Mm.
because
Yeah.
of the driver. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, keep your head on a swivel. Tow your car out to the country, or tow your bike out to the country
Yeah.
and go for a nice cruise. That's
Exactly.
what I like to do.
Yeah, to ride a motorcycle like from here, like get off the highway. In my opinion, like more up north, and then
Yep.
like ride all the way to the UP and stuff
that's
like
the
that.
dream.
Yeah, especially in this weather right now, it'd be like beautiful,
Perfect weather.
It really
Yeah.
is.
But yeah, so one of the things that I've always found challenging, because I know me and Trey, we've done plenty of pitch decks and like have tried to do the narrative thing, especially with some music videos that we've done. Like getting so close to the story that you kind of forget. And I'm not sure if this is just something that's happened to me or just like a fear that I had. But it's like, yo, this is awesome. But then there's just something in the back of my head that like halfway through shooting, you're like, what if this just comes out and it sucks? Like, what if like in the edit, I'm like, yo, this is my story. This is what I did. This is awesome, right? And everybody's like, yeah, I mean, that's a story, but like, it's not like,
I
like
think
that's cool.
Too
But it's not.
translating. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but just translating your thoughts and what you see in your head on like narrative or whatever kind of piece that you're doing, seeing it in your head and being able to translate it onto film or picture as best as you can, or like to a T, is like a super challenging task. And I mean, I feel like it always blends and molds when it comes to the final product, but like to be able to write it down, have an idea, and do it exactly like that, I feel like is really challenging. And I feel like I've only done that a handful of times,
If you have complete control over it, I think.
depending on the project, obviously, too.
Yeah. And when you were, writing, editing, directing, acting, and doing some of these things for DBAS, was that mostly like, as you said, like to flex and to be able to show and prove who you really are as a filmmaker? But does there also like a sense of control come from that? Because like, hey, like I know who this character is and I am an actor myself and I think I can embody this character versus like, getting somebody else to do it?
Yeah, I think the role that I played, Cricket in the movie, I think I was best suited for the role with the budget that we had and the time that we had. Right, I knew that I would put more into the role than what I could pay another actor to flying out from LA to do. Right,
That's valid.
And so I think if I had had more money, maybe I would have, like, for example, if I had had more money, I definitely would have taken my producing hat off completely, or my logistical hat off completely, just because, you know, it's hard to be creative and, you know, produce at the same time. I've always been very inspired by actor, writer, directors. Like Takashi Kitano is someone that I'm very inspired by when I was writing this movie. He was a comedian from Japan who in the mid-90s or late 80s, mid-90s started writing a lot of like Yakuza crime thrillers, but like with heart and sort of a meditative theology to them, which he wrote, directed, and starred in. So I mean, there was always, those are the three things that I really like to do. And so I figured if I'm going to spend all of this time and money into doing one, right, I should just let's do it and see whether or not it's worth it, you know.
But was there any like, this is my baby, like?
So in terms of control, I won't say it. I'm sure everyone else would call me a control freak. Yeah, sure. You know,
well, no, I'm just saying.
I assume they would, but I will say that I give up control to my department heads, right? As long as I feel like they're really downloaded on what the story is, right? So is that the question of like, is it a control thing?
Well, it was kind of a little bit of just what was it? Because I know there was so many things that you were doing on it, and I mean, I've done this before too with a lot of drop stuff where it's like I don't really get in front of the camera that much, but when it comes to, you know, like producing and then also just making sure that everything is exactly where it needs to be, like there's times when me and Trey specifically don't even bring other people on because it's like, yo, we're just gonna do this because we don't need somebody else fucking it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's when you're working at a certain level of budget and you know that, look, I can't pay a production coordinator $550 a day to do this stuff that needs to get done, right? Do you ask your buddy to do it even though they don't really do that type of job because they know they'll help you out, or do you do it yourself, right? And I think there was a lot of those in that me and the producers had to do for this movie, right? Not just me, but the producers of just like, look, no one's going to do it for us, right? And we don't have the money to do all of this, to hire a bunch of people, so you just got to do it, right? And I think a book that I would recommend to young filmmakers is the Duplass Brothers book called Like Brothers. Have you guys read it? It's so fucking good. But they have this one chapter called The Cavalry Isn't Coming. And the first script that I wrote that was bought is still in what they call development hell, which is we have $500,000 in escrow, we have a couple great actors attached, we have this, we have that, but we don't have all the money, we can't quite get there, right? And what they talk about, because they went through this exact same thing with their first feature, is just this development hell thing where you always think, okay, one more attachment, one more production company attachment, one more star attachment, whatever, it's going to get us all of our funding. But what they tell you, at least what their theory is that the cavalry is not coming and that you need to go do it yourself or it's not going to happen for you. And so after years of being in development hell with that movie, which was titled How to Disappear, me and Tanya decided that we just had to go do it ourselves, right? And luckily we had a band of incredible artists and, you know, cutthroats that were willing to do it with us, right? And so yeah, it was a product of like doing what you had to do. I don't think it certainly wasn't an ego, like me writing and directing, acting certainly wasn't like an ego thing of like, oh yeah, I want to, and I wouldn't
even really call that ego, man. I mean, I would like, it's like if I wrote and directed a movie and, you know, with as many character casts as there are in the film that you just made, like I would be like, fuck it, yeah, I want to be in a movie. I'm an actor, like especially if I have an acting background, that would be something that I would love to be a part of and like do myself, because I mean, you deserve it. And also it's not necessarily like, you know, some people might not even think of it as like a glorious thing, but at the same time, like you are building something, like you are making something, it's your art. So like for me with one of my paintings, or, you know, for a musician with their music, to not have like you in it, is okay sometimes, but then also to put yourself in it isn't. I wouldn't consider an ego thing, and I don't think most people would see it as such.
And I think there are a lot of directors or writers that are like, yo, I want to act too. And it's like, why are they doing that? For me, it's, I guess I look at it a little differently because that's like what I originally did. And I think it helped me transition to doing the things I do now. Right.
Yeah.
As an actor, you think about theme, you think about place, you think about story, you think about character, you think about arc.
So you acting in your piece is way more of like a homage to where you started in a sense.
Yeah, in some ways, but it's also just like
for yourself.
It felt,
at least.
I don't know. It was just like, just
anybody talk smack, they're hating. They're just haters. Come on.
Would you do it
That's
again?
So awesome.
Look, I think that there's, I do think that there's some credence to the critique, right? Like there were times on the shoot that I went, well, if I was just directing this thing, you know what I mean? If I was just right, but then it's like, well, then you would have spent 3 years on your life making a movie and not showing people that you're an actor, right? Or not showing people that you're a director or a writer. And so I would say to any kids out there that are going to try to make a movie, it's like, it's hard in this world of everybody screaming me, to say me, because it gets boring after a while, the selfishness and the constant look at me, you know? Mm-hmm. But if you want to be an artist in today's day and age with social media, you have to do it a little bit. And that's something that I struggled with when I first got into the industry. Is I was very dead set on letting the work do the speaking for me, and to not do things like this, not to have to go talk about what I do or whatever, and just say, go look at it. And if you like it, you like it. I still believe in that, but it didn't get me very far. And I hate to say it because I don't think it's right, but it's not going to get you very far.
It is the
you
world
got
that
to,
we
and
live
this goes
in.
back to what you were saying about when you sometimes you make things and you go and you're suddenly in the shot and you go, is that not what I wanted it to be? Does that suck? Whatever, right? Mm-hmm. You make a different movie when you write than when you shoot it, than when you edit it, right? It's always going to be different. It's never going to be a one-to-one translation of what was in your mind. But if the backbone, if the core of what you wanted to do is still there, then it's going to end up transforming into something that's probably better than what you originally thought of. Mm-hmm. And I've had a lot of people ask me, well, dude, where's your confidence for that the scene has to go like this or whatever? I would say if you're writing and you're having trouble with that, just stop thinking about what it's supposed to be and just like follow your heart and your gut, and then just let it live and be. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. Or if it could have been better, it could have been better. But if you're constantly questioning, is this right? Is this good? Then you shouldn't direct and you shouldn't write, because all art is subjective. If you're going to do it and you're going to, for example, make people spend a month of their lives working their asses off, you should have the fucking confidence to say, look, this is a worthwhile story. And if you don't, then you shouldn't do it. And it's a hard thing to accept, but it's the truth.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you're making, like, it's your art. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something that people do naturally. And some people are good at it and others aren't, but like when you're making good art, you kind of know it, and when the people around you are as supportive and as into it as you are, it's definitely, worthwhile to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm fucking doing this.
I mean, what is good art, man?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is like I can already tell you 5 fucking things that I would have done differently about Don't Be a Stranger in terms of the story, like right now, than what we did, right? Because right now I might be inspired by something different than I was last month, right?
Exactly.
And it would be I'm listening to this one song and it's got this feeling, this undertone. I want to put that in there. I want to feel,
and that'll change as your brain
and it just
changes.
all changes, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like at the end of the day, all you can do is just send it, and especially if you're directing, you have to send it with confidence, because the people around you, when you're making subjective art, especially on like a film set, like where like you don't even know if these people have read the script or if you've like talked with them about what the scene means. You've done it with the production heads or department heads, but maybe not everybody. You have to inspire, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot about being a leader on a creative work is inspire people to let them know that what they're doing is worthwhile, because film is too hard of work to do 12 hours a day and to not go, that was a worthwhile way to spend my time.
Yeah.
Right? You lose too much sleep, you work too hard, you make too little money. It is too unstable, right? If you can inspire people to say, yo, this is why we're doing this shit and we're doing it because it's worthwhile, then all of a sudden their work is going to get way better.
I mean,
That's
I was
facts.
definitely inspired after DBAS too. I'd talked to Trey about it, and even a couple of my friends about it. Like before going into it, me and Trey had a few things that fell through, and it was just very defeating. And after a while, when things start to fall through and pitches don't go the way that they want to, or cold calls aren't making they're doing what they need to do. We still have all the work that we do on the side, but the things that we want to do and really pride ourselves in, it can be really defeating after a while. And it was just another reminder to me. I was like, hell yeah, man. Like everybody's out here doing it. I can do it. Like this is what we do. Like this is what we were born to do. So I was definitely inspired from DBAS. That's for sure.
And I will say that what we did those 3 weeks weren't any different besides a lot of money than what I've seen on really big sets.
Mm-hmm.
The work ethic, the talent, it wasn't any different.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
we're all worthwhile in that regard,
Yeah.
Most definitely.
especially you two.
Thanks, Pete.
Especially you. Would you do the 3-peat again on like a different story?
You mean same crew?
Of like acting, directing, writing kind of thing, or would you like for your
I think
next?
it would depend. I mean, for
That's
example, the book that I told you briefly I'm adapting, I don't know if I see a role in there for me for it. I think it would totally depend. If the movie does well, I might want to go act for a little bit and not right.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, totally.
That's valid.
I think that was the hope for this project, is that everybody involved. Like one of the things that me and Tanya said when we were going into like hiring was that like we want to grab every single person that we grew up with working in this industry that hasn't had an opportunity to shine and get them on it, right? And so if someone can watch this movie and they can use it as a piece to go, further whatever the hell they want to do with their lives, that's the goal, So I don't know what's next for me in specific. Just fucking take it one day at a time.
Yeah.
And focus
I
on
love
the
it.
work, right?
I love it. Yeah.
I remember seeing one of your, I don't know exactly what role you had in this film, but it was the first time I ever saw you like in person on stage, and you had won the Ipsy 24, and it was Cycle of the Blast. And when I first saw that, because we had submitted something, but we were just WCC students, so like it was just one of this things that we
just
did.
some fucking WCC.
Yeah, it's like we were just WCC students. And then I saw what you guys did, and I remember just watching it and just like mentally putting my hands up in the air and be like, oh, what the fuck? Like, that was awesome. There's no way we can compete with that. What the fuck was that? Like, that was crazy. And I even watched it like a few times after, because it was on Vimeo for a while. I don't think it's anywhere now, right?
It is. It's still on my website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool,
yeah.
cool. But,
Yeah.
But this was when I had first started WCC, and seeing people like a lot of those Ipsy 24s that year were so banging. Like I saw a lot of Steve Weed, I saw a lot of Martez, I saw a lot of what you guys were doing, and
Rick Cordero.
yeah. And it was just really cool to watch those. And for years, not really interact with you guys, but still see what you were doing.
Okay.
And then being like, like I would really love to work with all those people.
Yep.
And then nowadays, like you guys are just in my phone, and I can just, and it's like, oh, what's up, Tez? Like, what's up, dog?
Yeah,
like
man.
Martez has worked on some of my shit. I see Steve at the gym every day.
That's
Like,
how
it's
it
fucking
goes,
awesome,
baby. Yeah, man. Cycle of the Blast is epic. I remember we ran that back too because we got robbed the year before.
Oh shit!
How so?
During you got robbed in the
Like we just
competition.
got robbed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
You were
in
like-
fact, I heard they thought we didn't make it in one day, and so that's why we didn't get
what?
anything. But we
Oh,
totally
what?
did. We totally
What?
wrote
So
it
the
and
judges
directed
were
it
like,
one
that's
day, yeah.
fake. They use
Yeah.
old footage.
Yeah, or like that we had redone or something, and so.
When you're just too good for the 24.
So then,
I don't
so then with
know,
Cycle
but
of the
the
Blast,
next
you were like,
year
we're just going to do this in one shot.
We came back and we, yeah.
They're like, all right, we slated it with a clock that shows the date and time, bitch.
And Cycle of the Blessed too was like a one take. I know there was like maybe a few hidden cuts in there too, but like it was so perfect that it was almost one of those things that you could look at the judges and be like, so yeah, Like, did we do this in a couple of days?
I don't know
This
if it
was
was
like
perfect,
in one,
but-
this was like all one shot.
It was a fun little flick, though, for sure.
Yeah, that was dope.
Yeah,
it was
that was a fun
powerful.
one.
I liked it. There were some parts like when I was just in the soundtrack and everything,
Yeah,
and the script.
yeah.
I was like, damn.
Yeah, that score was done by Jesse Clayton, who's an incredible composer.
Okay.
He smashed that shit.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that. Like I still remember that score in my head very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That shit was banging.
That shit was banging.
Well, yeah. I think I want to get outside. Well,
Yeah.
It's still nice.
I do too.
Okay. It sucks because you're here now, and I know that once you leave, I'm going to be like, "Fuck! I wanted to talk to him about this and that and this."
Hey, but I'm
happens-
going to come back when the movie's about to come out, though, right?
That's
We'll
true.
do it. We got to have
We'll
you
do
and
that.
Tanya on.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to talk
Yeah,
to
you
her
got to bring
too.
Tanya on
We
here.
do.
She'll be fascinating.
Yeah.
You should bring Tanya on. You should bring Brian Knight on.
I do.
He'd be really.
Brian, I do
he'd
want
be
B.
really
Knight.
fascinating.
Because I mean, we were FaceTiming the other day, and I saw his face, and I was like, "Oh, what's up, dude? I miss you."
He's a trippy cat. You should bring
Yeah.
him on. Pat Bird. You should bring Pat.
I want to
Bird
bring
on.
Pat Bird on, dude. There's so many
I
people
want
I want
to
to bring on.
I want to
Pat
bring
Bird.
them on. Like, there's so much stuff I want to talk about the film, but I just can't yet. So, like, we gotta wait for release, or just I don't know. 'Cause
Well,
there's
just
so
we
many
just wanna talk
questions
about
I
the
have
film. We'll
for
talk about everybody's
specific.
personal.
I know. I want
specific
to like do
departments,
this.
you
Yeah,
know?
I want to do it again, and I want to do it when we can really talk about all the
You just
deets.
gotta have a
Run a
DBAS panel. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, we could. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
fun.
We have
Rent
to
out a
help with
little
that.
hall. Yeah.
We could do like a D-Bass Christmas
Well, like
special.
with the screening or something that you have. Like, that'd be rad.
Yeah.
Little Michigan theater action.
Yep.
Peter, is there anything you want to plug?
Go see Don't Be a Stranger when it comes out. They'll make sure to post it. It'll be all over everywhere, hopefully.
Mhm.
And that's
You won't
it.
be able to close
Your
your
website
eyes
or
without
Instagram or
thinking.
Yeah,
anything
you
like
can.
that?
So you can find me at peterherold.com, Herold, or you can find me at Instagram at pddoes. There's a dot in between there, so PETEY.DOES.
Mm-hmm.
And he
That's
sure
my
does
Instagram.
the dang thing.
Yeah, he does the dang
I do.
thing.
That's really my only socials.
Well, hell yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
healthy that way.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, all right, everybody. Thanks
was a
for
pleasure,
listening in.
guys.
Yeah,
Cool.
thanks for coming, Peter. We
Let's
appreciate
go
it.
and enjoy some of this weather.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Peace.
Thank you.